Welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Baseline Protocol Community's Public Steering Committee. This is July 6th. I hope everybody has had a good holiday weekend who had a holiday to celebrate. And we'll start off today with the agenda. We see a lot of new faces here, some old faces, some new faces. And I assume, given that this is a post-holiday Monday, it's possible that we'll have a smaller number than normal, but we will be recording this to YouTube, which will be posted probably in about 24 hours from now. And with that, I'm going to throw up the agenda. Give me a second. Share my screen. And if anybody doesn't know, all agendas and past and future are here in the GitHub repo. And we are now on to July 6th. And here's the agenda. So first on the agenda is welcome anybody who'd like to introduce themselves. I'll make the standard disclaimer. Appearance on this public forum does not indicate or suggest any intentions on the part of your company, nor yourself. So everybody should feel free and safe to participate and introduce themselves without worrying about whether or not they're signaling anything. And with that, would anybody like to introduce themselves?
Yep, I will be happy to introduce myself. So hello everyone. It's my first, let's say, SSC or baseline. My name is Ioannis Vlachos. I'm with the WB Node. WB Node is a boutique strategy and consultancy firm. So I will be happy to join efforts with all the team members for baseline. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Ioannis. Anybody else? Hey, York, I see you there. It's good to see you.
Hey man, how you doing? Sorry I was a few minutes late.
No, I love your background. Are you still in that actual environment?
Still vibing the West Coast, yeah.
Oh man, I miss it. All right, so welcome everybody. It's good to see you all. Unlike the weekly office hours, the baseline show, as we're now calling it, on Wednesdays, which we are live streaming, this is not live streamed. So we won't have to be watching for chats from there. Although that show is getting to be kind of popular. It's kind of wild. It's when you do something every week, I guess. Right. So I'm going to review, as most of you know, the job of the SSC is sort of at like the beginning, the roadmap planning, watching for the things that we're looking at in the front view mirror. The TSC meeting is often reviewing what has been done. But in this case, this week, we're going to be looking at something that is just completing because it's important. So we'll get into that in a few minutes. Next, we'll review the minutes and actions from last time and interlock with the last TSC. So the minutes I'd like to ratify here are, we had about 40 attendees, number of new folks. We went through our momentum metrics. We are approaching 600 actives on our community channels. Actually, it's over that when you add up all the different channels at this point. We're now moving towards actually 350 stars, 90 some forks, and 12 contributors, and that's about to get a lot bigger because of what we're going to discuss today, which is the init core merge. There's a big branch, bigger than what anybody's comfortable with, but it will be a significant upgrade to baselining, and we'll be discussing that. And speaking of which, if somebody else other than me can maybe ping, is Kyle on?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, good. I just want to make sure you're teed up because we're going to be interviewing you in a minute. We instructed the only contributors who have merged to master can vote for the TSC. We're going to repeat that later today. We discussed the new YouTube video, which if you haven't seen it, is pretty awesome.
In terms of making.
And we won't go into that, but that's there. So take a look at that, give it some social networking love. Roadmap epics we went through, and that's all on the video. And Morpheus reviewed real world cross-border shipment project that they're getting up. So really a lot of what we do on this call is about letting people know what they can get involved in and why they should get involved, right? So the Fraunhofer and Unibright announced that they're working on a baseline and manufacturing demo. Pretty exciting, having to do with IoT and with, or rather with additive manufacturing. Fraunhofer is one of the venerable research institutes in Europe. And then MuleSoft connector demo is also discussed by Peter Chris, and et cetera, et cetera. I won't take up too much time on this, but hopefully everybody got to see this. We usually ratify by dissent. Any dissent? Any additions, modifications, deletions? All right, we are, well, I didn't count to 7. 6, 7, okay. So minutes are ratified, and that's good. So celebrating momentum. I'll turn that over to would anybody like to discuss things that they're seeing that they're excited about within baselining today? Got a few announcements. You work on anything over at Microsoft?
I've been on vacation for a week.
Hey, there's momentum in that.
So I'm not up to speed, John.
Right on. I will say that it's summer and it's midsummer, and so I think there's been a bit of the growth is still going up and to the right, but it's a little softer than it normally would be. I think is fair to say, but still pretty strong, especially for midsummer, a COVID summer at that. So lots of people have been calling. We just got off a call with another company that I think will be joining the community. I continue to say there are some really big companies that are working through their OSSC organizations to be officially involved. That takes an enormous amount of time, but and I can't really say anything about them until they announce themselves, but they're great names, and they are doing things by the book. So those things are coming, and every day we're seeing more projects come out.
Hey, John. Wanted to ask for, and the group in general, I mean, this is summer, but in academia, especially this year, like for most businesses, things are changing around a lot. And so we're kind of changing the landscape at different schools, in particular the school I'm with. Duke University, yeah. So if anybody has any thoughts, I mean, one of the things that was very cool at probably at the beginning of the summer is we had a ton of organizations step up and say, I know students are losing internships. I know students are having jobs pulled or delayed, those kinds of things. And we had a ton of companies that stepped up and said, hey, you know what, we're going to expand our internships, or, we're going to expand the number of people we're bringing on. If any of you have any opportunities, doesn't have to be immediate, obviously, because the school's not really ginned up, but any opportunities that you may want to leverage folks, in academia in the fall, I would love to take those to task. I mean, we run 2 blockchains, including a full node of Ethereum at Duke, but we're very involved in a couple of different academic kind of pursuits. So if anybody has any thoughts along those lines, things that you'd like to maybe bring students into the mix, I'm happy to entertain any of those, talk with you about them. I just think this is kind of a strange time, and we're starting something fairly new here. And so and I've looked like a couple of times, there are no scholarly articles for anything in baseline yet. There are a lot of articles, but not scholarly articles yet. So if anybody has any thoughts or would like to leverage people in academia, don't don't hesitate. And it doesn't have to be directly in this, maybe it's even more in the regulatory side or something like that. Don't hesitate to reach out to me, please.
Which department are you in?
I'm in the engineering school.
Okay.
So I'm at Pratt School of Engineering. I lead 2 of the graduate programs, one in financial technology and one in cybersecurity. And I actually teach blockchain. I've been teaching it for the last several years in the engineering
Wonderful.
school. Yeah.
Awesome. Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you.
Right. So that's a pretty good thing. And thanks, Jimmy, for bringing that up. Also, I was going to look for it, but I'm sharing screen, so I'll do it later. There is an academic article that was circulated. I know that Paul Brody has seen it, and the team at Ernst & Young, the research team there, the XEXE, ZXE is the work, and quite interested in the relevance of that work to baselining. And I'll try to post that at least in the minutes afterwards. So that's one good academic article. There's a lot of things that are related to baseline, but you're right. There's no baseline published academic work, and that, I think that might be something we want to put on the roadmap.
I was just going to say, if anybody wants to, wants to partner, I mean, I would be more than happy to help lead some of that, something like that from the academic side. I think it would be a cool thing to do. And so if there are people who are interested in that kind of side of things, I would be more than happy to help, kick something like that off. And I know we have students who are interested in, very interested in the space. Besides the classes, we actually have a couple of blockchain clubs at Duke, but it'd be kind of cool to maybe pull in some of the other schools in the RTP area, State and Chapel Hill.
Well, I think it's also worth saying, Jimmy, that any non-Duke universities should just be embarrassed and ashamed that they're not here to contribute to this wonderful conversation. And too bad on them, right?
Well, that goes without saying.
Clearly, the only place to be is Duke. No, kidding. As I recall, they didn't let me in, so I'm going a long ways there. Right. So that's there's a lot of momentum. Clearly, we're still going up and to the right, and I think the metrics are we've published them already, so I won't go into those immediately. So on to the next thing, feature project status. And Kyle, we want to give you a lot of time on this. Everybody, Kyle and the maintainer team have been doing yeoman's work on something called init core branch. You can see it if you go into the repo and just go down to the init core branch. There's a lot of work in there. It's a big blob. Kyle, would you like to take it away?
Yeah, sure. So init core initializes the baseline, the core baseline protocol packages for the first time. There's a handful of packages, primarily, primarily around the API itself. The smart contracts, that's another package. Messaging, persistence, privacy, and types. Those are the 6 packages. The persistence package is probably not going to be populated. It's just sort of a placeholder. You can think of it, or you can sort of see the cookbook sort of arising from that package. The way it's been implemented in previous, in previous demos is simply like, for example, the ERP connector proxy example that we have under examples implements that persistence package, for example, the Unibright proxy and the D365 connector as well. So, we're pushing for having an example app a lot simpler than, much more easy to sort of grok, easier to understand example reference implementation under examples/baseline-app. We still want to get Radish 34 sort of ported to use these new packages. But
Oh,
I think
and Kyle, let me interject there.
Yeah.
For those who don't know what Radish 34 is, it's the original demo that came in the original package. Right?
Yeah, so we still want to support the Radish 34 demo, but we thought it would be good to have sort of a minimalistic version of a reference implementation that we could point at and say, this is an example application that uses the baseline protocol, and this is the minimalistic sort of approach to wire together Bob and Alice, do, baseline, against the generic circuit that we've added.
And the generic circuit, can you say a little bit about that? It's effectively what? It's kind of everything was done the same circuit.
Yeah, it's essentially like what we're hoping that can become and represent sort of a baseline document circuit, meaning essentially showing like just being able to prove using zero knowledge that two steps in a workflow are related. And so
then the records are consistent between the
right. And sorry, John.
Well, one of the things that you told me about that I didn't know that I thought was quite interesting, maybe you want to talk about is how that's not simply a generic circuit for consistency check, but that it's going to be used. I think Karthik, if he's on, was describing that it forms the basis of more advanced circuit libraries that you can build, not in addition to, but on top of this, right? So it's a framework.
Yeah. We've sort of designed it in such a way where we're hoping to allow additional circuits to be sort of composable, again, using this base circuit, as well as baking in a few additional bits, like around the concept of finalization, which is kind of what we're thinking of as a precursor to the ability to tokenize, like turn a baseline document into a tokenized financial instrument. And so we're thinking of having like sort of, a flag to determine whether or not the baseline document is eligible for tokenization, and then maybe like a 4-byte identifier, not to get too into the weeds, but sort of like an identifier that would point at a token factory for the tokenization, sort of crossing the bridge or chasm between baseline and DeFi.
What I like about this, everybody, just to provide a little color commentary on it, is that repeatability was an important, York, you'll remember, repeatability of the protocol was essential, right? If you had to pay mathematicians to come up with every time you had a new workflow, that was going to kind of suck. So now we have this base thing that can be used for anything. It's repeatable, it's inexpensive, it's there. But then there's this opportunity, and everybody should be aware of this. And for all of the TV viewers, who tune into this, you should know that there's a real business opportunity if you are. I mean, isn't Thomas on there? So, Mr. Walton Pocock, are you there? From Aztec? I thought I saw you in there. So companies like Aztec, companies like Ernst & Young Research, which is venerable, is a tremendously good research team in zero knowledge and circuits. Heck, Jimmy, your team at Duke, I mean, you've got a bunch of graduate students there that know a little bit about math, just a little. Anybody like that, can be in business writing libraries for auditors, for regulators, and for others that want to not only have a consistency circuit, but want to enforce correctness of some pattern or some requirement set with their zero knowledge circuits. So I think that's a really powerful business opportunity for companies that are in that line. York, would you agree? I mean, what would you say from the Microsoft perspective?
Yeah, no, I think it's a step in the right direction in terms of moving towards a framework that's a utility that can be leveraged with lots of other essentially use cases and capabilities. So great work.
Okay, there you are, Thomas. You have any thoughts on that? Oh, we're lost. Can't hear you. All right. Well, companies that we know are relevant in this, and if on future SSCs, if you want to introduce yourself and let people know that you can do this sort of work, that's a business opportunity for you, and we're even happy to interview you on the Baseline show on Wednesdays if you do that sort of thing. Okay, moving on. Keep going, Kyle. I'm sorry about that.
No. And so the privacy package is to sort of relate the conversation to Aztec a bit. It's modular as well. So, when we're aware of how a little bit more abstracted interface might look like that can support, like, for example, Plonk, you'll be able to sort of access that in the same way that you're accessing the current baseline, the zero knowledge, the ZK snark circuit provider. So yeah, I think we're moving towards this this pattern of extensibility and really
to highlight on that point, Kyle, that'll let you, for example, link up an Azure Active Directory permission set, right, with the blockchain key.
Yeah, that's what the iRegistry interface will the iRegistry interface in the API package really is suited for that very purpose.
Hey, speaking of that, just on my screen appears Jonathan Levy, the famous Jonathan Levy from Hasera, one of the finest companies in blockchain space. Did a lot of work. Jonathan, you want to say hi? And if any questions about the iRegistry, I think that's kind of your game, right? You're well known for your Active Directory and LDAP integrations.
So yeah, hello everybody. We actually worked for a few years on trying to be able to share identities across chains, so that you don't have to kind of create one for Ethereum, another one for Fabric, 3 ones for 3 fabrics, and another one for your private Ethereum version. And spending a lot of time thinking with John Walpole, and like how can we kind of combine forces. So even if you have some private data or a private set of organizational level kind of Active Directory, and you already have policies and permissioning and different identities that the organization is already happy with, what can we do to not need to replicate it, right? So that's why I kind of jumped in, and it's a very interesting way to try to think about like a workflow that actually doesn't duplicate identities, right? Because if something changes either in your public network or your permission networks or your private settings, you get out of sync very quickly. And we're trying to think about how can we make sure that we refer to the same thing all the time.
Yeah, and this is a pretty important pattern that we see for almost every startup that builds on Azure Cloud, is the ability to connect into an existing permissioning system like Azure Active Directory. Enables those organizations to link up their, for example, Office 365 or Dynamics or other enterprise applications into that. So it's an enabling path that I think will help a lot.
And just to add to that, right? Like, and if you don't use it, you're actually either recreating something that is already very solid. You can have Active Directory on multiple clouds. You don't have to use like Azure specifically. I can use Active Directory as my authentication authorization mechanism and deploy the compute somewhere else, right? Or deploy the compute on Ethereum, right? I have like a smart contract, but still being able to use some of the work that is already there. And big organizations already have that. So if you do it correctly, you'll have like multiple layers of security, right? Which is nicer. And that's kind of what we have. Because when I worked with John Walpole like for a long time, actually, many years ago, and we came in with like an identity management and then we started thinking, look, but there's a lot that is already there. Like, why don't we create a private network that actually duplicates or redoing a lot? And we spent a lot of time thinking about it. We created a registry together. We created like a naming service for being able to kind of find private networks. And then now you have more than one. But the idea is actually to start integrating these different systems so that you can at least do the lookups, right? So we talk about like iRegistries and identities. And we're looking at corporate registries, and we're looking at different chains that just have some private data, but you would like to refer to it somewhere, right? So how to have it all kind of interoperating, and that's the baseline of kind of interoperability as well, right? So
the example app, the example app that's going to be you'll be able to see it under example/baseline app will sort of show this pattern. It's exactly how you describe it. So
that's great.
be sure to
Yeah,
check
just
it out.
wanted two other points on that. Jonathan, you referenced this point, which is if you're building an enterprise application or even a SaaS application, you're going to have data stores which sit somewhere, right? Likely in a cloud backed by some kind of identity system. And so being able to reference those in a logical way that's linked to the blockchain-based identity is really important. And then secondly, also as important in this topic of blockchain and identity is the work that the Decentralized Identity Foundation has been doing and the work that Microsoft has been doing in concert and collaboration with the Decentralized Identity Foundation to leverage corporate assets like Active Directory and Active Directory entries to be able to issue DIDs. So this is public information at this point that we've been on this journey for about 4 years, maybe 3 years properly, to actually get to the point where we can actually both recognize a blockchain-based key, which is what a DID is, as a individual identity that could then be authorized into a corporate Active Directory identity. So that's the authorization path. And then the other path is that the existing Active Directory businesses that are using it, and that's about 80% of enterprises around the world, could actually issue blockchain-based keys for their users or for their corporate citizens. And so we're getting to the point where I think we're going to be able to leverage this technology to bridge to having truly decentralized identity, which could have for example, for me as a Microsoft employee, I may have a DID, but I would have a credential essentially that permissions me into the Active Directory environment. So there's a very nice construct here that leverages decentralized identities based on blockchain, public key infrastructure, connecting into enterprise as well. And so as you think about the rationalization of not creating new identity systems, this is the stitching that actually tells you why you should absolutely not try to go and build something in parallel.
Let's get this thing done, right? It's time. And by the way, so Kyle and the maintainers, I'd reach out to Jonathan. He's one of the best. He's got a team that's fantastic, knows more about this stuff than most people, and maybe we can do something that's exciting together that crosses some boundaries. It's an all-volunteer army here, so we can use the help, Jonathan.
So yeah, last point about that. Where this winds up going is that you can have institutional or corporate identities. Thank you for bringing that up, John. That are now essentially an on-chain identity through a DID. And that then enables even private blockchain networks as they exist today to start to have essentially this global registry of identities that now you can verify digital endpoints through.
Yeah, the other part of this is that, we've noticed the research shows, I wouldn't call it statistically significant yet, but it's pretty close. I think we're almost to a t-test that, shows that about 60 to 80% of corporates will not be anytime soon being able to count holding cryptocurrency to pay gas charges. So if you're an administrator at a company that's baselining, you're going to need a dashboard that allows you to set up a gas service, get charged in normal, fiat currency as an IT expense, but still know what who in your company, even though the mainnet doesn't know anything about your internal users, you're going to need to know who's spending gas, right? So that's, there needs to be an API that allows that dashboard to be constructed and allow that interface between what's going on in front of the company and what's going on internal to the company. Yep. Kyle, you want to keep rolling from there? Sorry, I think we can do another 5 minutes and still stay on schedule.
No, yeah, I think all that makes total sense, and yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to folks, getting in and reviewing the PR. I think
Could you take us through effectively what do people need to know who are tuning in? We've done this a couple of times. There's a, by the way, for folks who need to know, there's a baseline show, Wednesday baseline show, the last Wednesdays on YouTube that has Kyle talking a lot about this as well. So you can go back and reference his stuff there, and there's some graphics. But can you tell folks what issues they should be keeping an eye on, and what they're likely to have to do to change anybody that's currently building on the current stack? What are the first, second, and third thing that they're going to want to do when we push this out in the next few weeks?
So I think the biggest change fundamentally is the generic circuit over the application specific circuits, and understanding how to either simplify what you have to leverage those, or look into how you may modify that generic circuit, and to figure the use case a bit more. So that would be, I think, the first step. The second step is there's probably a lot of code that you've written that you won't need, just simply because there's these boilerplate, anything boilerplate you're using to set up the environment, you'll be able to rely on the core packaging to do that.
And that's going to be in a folder called core, correct? You're going to /baseline to /core. That's right.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. And I'd say that then the third thing will be just look at how the example app implements the pattern, and pick, sort of pick and choose based on what you have, which part of the pattern that you'd like to keep, but whether that's like, oh, maybe you already have your messaging stuff implemented and you'd like to keep it that way. That should be doable. If you'd like to keep, if you'd like to greatly simplify things, though, you can sort of implement the baseline app pattern yourself, and likely strip away a lot of code that you bring.
All right. Any other comments? Any questions?
I look forward to the feedback on the PR. It's still in draft status right now, but I'd say we'll probably flip it back over to get the reviews going today or tomorrow. I'd say.
Yeah. We're working on documentation really hard, so that's another thing. We finally got our doc system lined up better, right?
Yeah, I think we have a good plan for it, John. Appreciate it.
Okay, well, that's the big thing. Init Core is coming, and that's going to accelerate a bunch of other projects that are already on the dock that we've seen in the roadmap. So we go back over the roadmap. The corporate identity is sitting in there. So I put the link, Jonathan Levy, to the corporate identity master epic, so that you can take a look there, see what's going on. I think there's a number of companies that are jumping in, but honestly, the companies that get it done first are the ones that are going to get the press release love from us. So
I think the concern is not like who is first, it's who is doing it correctly. Because Microsoft has been doing it for 20, 30 years. We spent only 5 years on this, and there's a lot of stuff to collaborate. So we are part of the VAD, right? So we have, like, HCR is one of the resolvers. So we've been doing it for quite some time. The main concern is that actually people are using DAD, but they don't do it correctly. So it's not clear to them that attributes should not be like, containing like private information, and people are uploading like SSNs. So it's not just having a spec. It's really, I think there's some, if you want to make it work, we need to also educate you, like how, or just provide guidelines, right? Like,
well said.
How it is intended to.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said. And of course, and from a baseline perspective, we're going to need things like the endpoint needs to be associated. So messaging is important. We need to know, where to send the messages. And that's got to be in the identity, so you don't mistakenly screw that up. You don't want to be, thinking you're working with Coke and then sending private messages to General Electric or something.
And all this attestation model, right, is usually the problem, right? So we can create like a small local kind of private setting of some single version of the truth, but it's not the truth. So
right.
So people need to attest some stuff, whether it's with oracles or without, but just so that we know who is your counterparty, what's your KYC if you want to, or just like, knowing what you're trading, right? The coconuts versus, and the third thing is probably what we see in enterprise all the time, liability. Right? People are afraid to actually sign something, or people are afraid to look at stuff that was not attested. So who said that the price is, like 17.2? Is it
Indeed.
NASDAQ or is it, yeah?
Well, and I was going to leave this until later, but it's just such a good segue. Why don't we talk about this? So here's an important announcement. We have gotten to the point where we have so many projects, we cannot possibly even survey them all. That's a great milestone, but it also means that we have to cherry pick what we're going to talk about on any given 2-week period. And EPIK Core was obviously one of them we needed to go into. If you want your project to be highlighted during the following SSC, you need to get it into the, put a comment into that GitHub issue for the next SSC. And the reason you want to do that is to sign up people to help, or and to put your stake in the ground and say, this is a press release that's coming and we want to get it lined up. So, there's a lot of reason to highlight stuff on this call. A lot of people listening and watching. Got 31 people on the call, and probably if it's like one of the last ones, maybe 1,500 people will view the video. So, it's a good time for you to put a stake in the ground on what you're doing. So please, in future, make sure that you line things up. One of the things that was lined up was Chainlink is now moving forward with a project to introduce Chainlink Oracles specifically for the purpose of avoiding non-determinism problems in these code packages, right? So if we have a logic circuit like the one that we have in Radish 34, where you say, I've got a purchase order, and that purchase order is being calculated against a rate table in the master service agreement work step, that's fine, and that's all contained inside one thing. But what if there was another conditional that says if the temperature is over so many degrees, this rate I need a different discount rate. Well, if my machine and your machine are both calculating the temperature and looking it up from different sources at different times, we're going to get different results. And that's just the beginning of non-determinism. So what do? Well, you use an oracle for that, but in a different way than we've done with other smart contracts. So this is a pretty exciting project, and it could extend all the way to code packages. You could oracleize code packages. You could say, well, there's a library of code or functions, even Lambda functions or what have you, that could be gotten from an Oracle service like Chainlink. So that is the project that's ongoing. I think it's very exciting, and I think there are a lot of data sources, including from Google. They've got an integration with Bigtable. So that demo, I think, is going to be a fairly doable little piece of work that's going to have a lot of people excited. So if you want to be involved in that, reach out to me or reach out to Johan Aid on Slack, or get in touch with us, and we'll get you involved, or go right into the repo and put your name on the project. That's the next one. Back to you, Kyle. Would you like to talk very briefly about some of the projects that will now be enabled by the new EPIK Core, like the DocuSign project or the blockchain as a service project?
So baseline as a service is sort of the first one that I've talked to. It's sort of the example app, except with a very lightweight central point of rendezvous or an orchestration for each organization in a work group. So yeah, it's sort of an extension of the example baseline app that will ship in the repo. So everyone who is able to clone the repo can simply with a little bit of an extension be able to leverage this baseline as a service concept. I think there's a pretty straightforward DocuSign example demonstration that can, with a little bit of work, use the generic circuit to complete sort of a rough looking UI. So it's basically like just a few API calls to connect it together, and maybe cleaning up and beautifying the front end a bit. We'd be able to show some, just basically like the marriage of an electronic signature with a digital signature. So that would be pretty interesting. That's all I got.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the EPIK for that. Maybe you can plug that into chat, Kyle, when you get a chance. And
Sure.
I'll tell you that we were just on a call with a big company that wants to do some baselining, and I was quite astounded by the fact that the thing that they kept on coming back to, I just kind of offhandedly said, wouldn't it be nice to be able to, baseline with your smallest customers or your smallest partners? And if they could just, for $9.95 a month, they could just, click off of a DocuSign and have a little sort of mint-like, system of record that was, verifiably baselined with their like their wholesaler. They came back to that over and over again, because it turns out they do a lot of DocuSigning, and they do a lot of smaller partners that don't have the volume to do a big system integration, don't know anything about ERPs, but and probably don't even have their data on a spreadsheet, maybe a spreadsheet. So they were quite, I was astounded by how much that story resonated. I kind of did it in an offhanded way, and they were interested. And they're not the only ones, but just the other day, that was a big deal. So maybe there's something there. I think it's an interesting product idea. Okay, so in the last tag end of this, are there any other projects that people want to highlight on this call? I'll do my 7-second uncomfortable silence and see if anybody steps up. And time. Pencils up. Anyone? Bueller? No? Okay, good. So we've walked through the current epics on the roadmap at the high level, although I don't think I showed the roadmap. Anybody that hasn't seen the roadmap, you load up ZenHub, and I will. One of the important things is that security project is starting to really spin up, and specifications is now in full swing. If you didn't catch it, last TSC from last week, we had a meeting just before the TSC on Thursday at 10 a.m. US Eastern Time, where Chet Ensign and the Oasis standards team from the TAB came and gave us a really, really good primer on doing very high professional standards drafting and specifications in the Oasis model. And several people have stepped up to help lead that. I'll be involved with that. And if you want to be involved with it, let us know and we will get you involved. So it's going to be with the release of Init Core. We have judged that there is sufficient generalization and abstraction to start writing those specs. And that is it. So feel free to go through the roadmap on your own, and you'll see that there's still a lot of POCs and demos that are coming up in the near future. You can change those if you're in charge of those. You can change the timelines on them if you need to. And there's that Oracle's and workflow logic with Chainlink. And there's a baseline in manufacturing demo, as we mentioned, baseline in IoT, MuleSoft demo coming up, Salesforce integration coming up, and of course, and this is getting into our next topic, regular business. There is a let's see, where is it? Might not have gotten added to the minutes, but I'll just add it now. There seems to be a number of different groups that are all working on invoice to tokenization demos. If you are working at, you know who you are. And there might be others who want to do this as well, where you take an invoice management ERP system of one type or another from like Ops Chain, and then integrate it, baseline those invoices and integrate them with a digital financial asset system like Codify or Centrifuge or one of those, and be able to work across those different systems. This is a big tentpole project, and now it turns out there are multiple groups that may be going after that. And I think what we've decided is that, again, whoever gets it done first, and as Jonathan said correctly, gets the press release. So that's an August timeframe thing. And if you want to be in that race to the finish line, let us know. All right, so beyond that, a little bit of general business, and then we can wrap. August sponsorship press release alert. So there a number of companies have stepped up to sponsor not only baseline protocol, but the Ethereum Oasis master project in Oasis. I think we've past sessions we've discussed the sponsoring system. You don't have to be a sponsor to do anything. You can be a maintainer, you can be a TSC member, you can be on the SSC. You can do a lot of things, and you don't have to pay a dime ever. However, like public radio, if you can afford it, you can support the work, and the terms are pretty inexpensive, frankly. So largest of companies pay $25,000 annually, and the smallest of companies can pay like $1,000 annually. So if you can, please do sponsor, and be aware that now they're going to do an announcement in August with the sponsors. So you might there's a little FOMO here. If you're worried that somebody who you don't want them to show up on a list like that without you showing up on the list, then maybe you should show up on the list, and then you can make them worry. So that's my underhanded sponsorship pitch. So please consider that if you can. I know we're in the year of COVID, but we're still chugging along. I will report that we do have enough sponsorships to keep the project going, but more helps. We can start to do more incentivization if we have more sponsorships. Any questions there? Anybody want to throw money at the screen? Feel free. My Ethereum wallet number is, no, kidding. TSC voting season is now August, September. So again, and we've said this before, I'll say it again. If you want to be able to vote for the TSC members, our 11-member TSC board, technical steering committee, and that board is the governing board that reports to the PGB, the project governing board, and it is in charge of mediating disputes with maintainers, determining if any maintainers that want to be a maintainer, folks that don't want them to be a maintainer. TSC manages all that kind of stuff. Just like Jonathan, a Hyperledger, not unlike how Hyperledger is managed. The TSC voting period will be in August and September, ending on the last day of September. And in order to vote, there's only one way you get to vote, and that is by merging something to master. It could be a spell check, but it's got to be something. So and in that process, you will sign the CLA, the contributor license agreement with Oasis, and you will be able to vote for TSC members. More to come on that, but just making sure everybody keeps an eye on that. Also, if you want to be a TSC member, reach out to me. I'm the chair currently, until somebody votes me out, and in September, and I can help you get on the list of folks to be a candidate. The baseline shows on Wednesdays are now, they will have a segment. Kyle Ellicott, the famous Kyle Ellicott, who is fantastic at events, does his own major events all over the place. I've been fortunate enough to be a panelist on more than one of his events. Kyle is sort of our czar of events right now, and we're grateful for his attentions on Baseline. He could spend his time on lots of other things. He's spending it on Baseline, and he's looking for interviewees. So we'll add a little interviewee segment where we will interview folks that are doing work on blockchain and Baseline and in the enterprise space. And finally, a reminder that we have a press contacts and events issue, respectively, in the repo. And what we're trying to do is build up our go-to list of reporters, journalists, and other contacts, so that whenever we do a press release, either from the community or from Oasis itself, we know who the go-to press folks are. So please contribute to that if you have a point of view. And finally, we do the same thing with events. So if you're aware of an event, in particular, an event that isn't blockchain, that is more about ERPs or systems of record or IT security, things that matter to CISOs, CIOs, CTOs of companies. These aren't the fancy events sometimes, but we're trying to get a really good body of events in this repo. So please add them. And that is all the business I had. And it's 11:53 by my watch. Oh, I thought I was sharing screen that whole time. So I'll put those links in the, there's the links to the, that's to the events, and here's the link to the press, and it's issue number 93 and 91 in the Baseline roadmap repo for anyone following along at home. That is our agenda. It will be on YouTube later today. I'm going to open up another moment for people to get in thoughts, comments, things that they want people to know about, or any other introductions that people would like to make for themselves. I see that Bill, you're on. I know that you guys are working hard on some really exciting stuff.
Yeah, if anyone is interested in working on zero knowledge proof circuit performance, benchmarking, cross DSL, query language specification, and potential application to an API server, please get in touch with me on the Baseline Slack. Thanks.
And for just in case, that's Bill Gleim, and I think you're available on Slack. So Bill Gleim from Consensus Health, working with the inimitable team over there. And I see also we've got Charlie on the line, Charlie Morris. Do you want to say anything about what's coming up with? Isn't there a big award session with the BRI this week?
Yeah, I think the BRI. In fact, it's tomorrow evening. They're doing an Enterprise Blockchain Awards ceremony. It's going to be virtual this year, obviously, but last year that was a big black tie event. So people can kind of tune into that. And then otherwise, we've been looking to do some work with the EEA to put out a report, and definitely looking to have some baseline commentary in that as well.
Yes, there's a report coming out. Tosh Deans from the Ethereum Foundation, who's also the chair of the main networking group for the EEA, is working with, and we've connected with Charlie to put out a joint statement on enterprise use of the mainnet. Obviously, Baseline, I think, will in the next 12 months really start to factor heavily in the growth of that, by all accounts. If you're interested in getting involved with that, that's happening soon. And I've heard that the EEA is now at the end of their selection period for the new executive director for the EEA. And I'm not going to steal any thunder by mentioning who it is yet. I'm not. I don't think that's been announced, but keep an eye on that space. Hi, Karen Scarborough, you're there. You want to say anything about what's going on with BP?
Yes, hi, good morning. Lots of things going on with BP. I'm really keen to connect with Duke on the academic paper because I think something like that would be really helpful to the project here. So I'll connect offline on that one.
I can tell you that Jimmy is one of the best people to work with I've ever met. So yeah, that would be a good connection. All right. I'm just looking through the list here, making sure people get some time. Marty, would you like to say anything about what's going on? No, you're good. Oh, one other thing that Bill didn't mention maybe is the TSC TEE work that you guys are doing and artificial intelligence work, right?
Yeah, I had a handful of things to mention, and then those got elided. Yeah, there's also the baseline integration with the Avalon Trusted Compute Framework mechanism, and standing that up. So there's a lot of stuff going on. TEE is one backend for the Avalon off-chain compute.
All right, all right. And I see Netherminds here. Dominic, do you want to say anything about what you're doing?
Sure. Yeah, we are making some updates on our middleware connector between Ethereum and Salesforce, and they're going to be using the NPM packages for the baseline NIC core. So we were originally looking at doing a demo kind of based off the Radish, like hosting Radish ourselves and doing dynamics to Salesforce. But we're also looking at, we're looking at accomplishing that, but we're also going to be doing an actual just upgrade of the DApp suite middleware that's open source using the NPM module. And then also making additions to the manage package, which resides in Salesforce and the different various callouts classes that we have there. So just kind of overall, just looking at how we can upgrade and improve on what we've developed from a kind of a base, Ethereum, Robson to Salesforce, and now including baseline for different standard records and custom records in Salesforce.
Fantastic. And Stephen Garcia, if you want to, I know that you guys are going to be sort of spinning up in the next few weeks. But I did hear from Eric Breivik that you guys are working on some spinning up some good stuff around security.
Yeah, Kyle and I meet weekly. We already put out the CISO Cecilia rebuttal for the CISO, just getting that polished up into PDF form to post it as an EPIK, and going to be trying to meet with all three of us this week to kind of hash out what becomes our regularly scheduled programming going forward.
Fantastic. Well, what a wonderful group. We are still at, we're like, I think at the height of it, 33 people on this call on a holiday, coming off of a holiday weekend in July on COVID year. That's pretty darn good. Give some social networking love to the video when it comes out in about 24 hours, if you can. And we'll see everybody in 2 weeks. Please, if you don't want to be on the what I do is I duplicate every meeting. I duplicate and push it down 2 weeks. So if you're on this now, you'll be on the next one. If you don't want to be on the next one, let me know and I'll take you off the list. And with that, it's good to see everybody. Have a fantastic next 2 weeks. It's going to be an exciting July for baselining and baseliners everywhere. And we'll see you soon.
All right.
Thanks, John. Great job.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
John.
Thank you.